Perfect. Good morning. Another truck talk. I just wanted to go over something that I created yesterday, and I wanted to sort of make a video about it because um, it's not that I want to explain what it is I wrote, but hey, I wrote another story. There's the story itself is sort of indicative of the stuff I write, but it might be a little darker. So let me sort of put it this way. When I write a story, and welcome back. Thanks for, the 2 or 3 people that actually watch these things. Cool. Welcome back. I wanted to talk about the book that I just wrote, and it's another short story because that's generally what I do. I like to just get to the point, write the story, tell the story, give some sort of sense of the idea behind the story, the meat and the bones of the creature, the structure that has grown, and of course end it with a little thought-provoking time, and the effort I put into it is really self-evident. So I'm sitting here just before work in my truck. Hopefully I have approximately half an hour I can devote to this. Pardon me for looking around, but it's getting kind of busy around here, and that's perfectly fine. I just hope nobody wants to come and say hi before work. Anyways, so we're going to go through this really quickly. I'm going to keep it within half an hour as usual, and then that way I can just let you know what the story is about. Usually when I write these stories and then I put them onto the website, I do give sort of a synopsis or premise to synopsis to the story, and a general idea of the outline of the story, what it sort of deals with. This one is called Shallow Thoughts in a Deep Tub. It's a little off script. It's a little off of what I've normally been writing, but then again, it is organic. So as I wrote it, and I was sort of going over the storyline and the content of the story itself, because I had to stop a couple of times, and a bunch of times actually, as I was writing the story. It, for some reason, and some stories do this, it was simple to go back into the story and continue writing it. So that tells me that it is something deep-seated inside me that I'm trying to portray. I'm talking a bit fast. Anyways, so the story itself is a little dark, and I wanted to sort of give a premise to that. I haven't yet kind of explained much about myself, and some of that would have a correlation to the stuff that I write. But first, let me kind of explain the stuff that I write in general. I have stories about astronomy, so things that happen in space. I have stories about society and the structures in groupthink, and what happens when there is a failure of structure. I have stories about, I guess you could call it manipulation. I have one about sort of a serial killer coming to an empty box. I have sort of stories that are all over the map. I have a story that is basically a generalized story with sort of back paging, which is my way of saying that I go back into what was, and I kind of jump forward into where that could go. and it's more of a sci-fi futuristic kind of story. This one, and I do children's stories too, so I'm like on both sides of the map, and I guess my writing is bipolar. Anyways, this story is sort of off of the beaten path. This one's a little darker than most, and it deals with because creatively I just use what I've experienced and what I feel like anybody else to feed what it is that I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to foster. And these stories are grounded in some sense of how I see the world, and how I have been affected by all these things that have happened in my life and around me, to people I know and care about. So this story is sort of a look into, without getting too deep, the darker side of how the brain can react to actions, can react to certain subject matter that they find around them. You can see, two people can see one thing, they're looking at the exact same thing, and the two people can diverge in how they absorb that information, and how they react or respond to that information. So this is the darker side of that, and the story itself is a short story, which is probably good, because I don't want to get people, manically depressed on this one. So what I've also decided in writing this story, I'm not completely finished it. I'm writing the ending, and I don't want it to be. The ending exists in my head, but I haven't literally, shaved the edges and softened it up a bit, because the way it played in my head was a little dramatic, but the way I write is sort of cryptic, and then at the same time it needs to have a finality, so that there's an ending to the story, and it's not just a run-on sentence like the way I talk. It ends up being a story that can be anybody during times of crisis, during times of fear and animosity, and just plethora of feelings that we all go through: depression, anger, fear, angst, whatever you want to say. There's all these things that feed these sorts of results. So let's just put it that way. Now, I will put a descriptor into the story, basically explaining that this is a darker vision. I will finish it and publish it on my site, and then what I'm going to do is, on the site, I'm going to have to start separating the types of material that I offer. I don't want people who don't like to feel, out of their element or not in control, to be subject to some of my deeper thoughts. This is not the first story I've written like this. I wrote another one, Hypnophobe, which is sort of another thing that used to fear me quite a bit. That sort of dealt with what I thought were dreams and weren't dreams. And anyways, that's this whole thing. That one's a surprisingly really, really short story, because it really didn't have a lot more to it than what just the events were. So on the website, I'm going to start, like the way the website is created, you get the opening page, and then you have 3 links at the top, one to the shop and one to a blog. I'm going to be opening up a 4th page, which it'll be the opening page, and then page 4, which will be page 2. I know that sounds confusing. It's not. The main page, and then there's going to be a lot of free content, stuff that you can just read and look at, get a sense of how I write. And then there'll be the shop, where you can purchase the books, and they're going to be cataloged. So within each catalog, you have different file types. You have, say, dark and dingy. You have sci-fi. You have, let's see, I guess you would have just creative, and then you'd have sort of, there are two optimistic stories, yay, which I have the brainstorming outline for. Surprisingly, and I'm generally a happy person, the happy stories are the hardest ones to write, because it gets to this thing where it's not hard to be happy. It's really easy to be happy, because you just have to admit that, of all the bad things that happen to you, there's worse things that could happen. And if you're even the slightest bit optimistic, then you sort of create the optimism around you. So if you go into a situation in a good mood, generally you foster that good mood in other people, which makes the interactions healthier and more positive. So you sort of bring it with you, and you see people that walk around and they seem to be, generally in a neutral or a good mood, and those people are easy to interact with and to talk to, and they sort of bring that good down home, Langford two-step kind of feeling to it. But at the same time, you have people that you talk to, and they're almost everything they say is negative. They bring their own distress with them, and they can't park it at the door. The baggage is sitting right there between you and me, or them and me, and it gets hard to interact with that sort of distress. Now, having said that, there are stories that when I try to write that are positive, that have a positive story, positive outcome, blah blah blah, they're the hardest ones to write, because even though I'm always generally in a really good mood, because I have a lot of things I can be thankful for, healthy family, a job, blah blah blah. A lot of the negative feelings are always sitting just above the surface. So in a couple of upcoming videos, I've already sort of written down what I want to say about who I am, and the reasons and the background to where this information and these stories come from. So those are the harder ones. I find making these videos, when I first started out, were a bit of a challenge, but once you push the button and you start talking, you just start expressing yourself, and you have points to make, and you have ideals. So you want to make sure that when you make these videos, that you've said what you need to say, and then you have the salad bar, then you have the filler. So don't fill up on the salad bar, go for the main course. When I'm trying to write the happier stories or the more positive stories, I find that it's easier with the children's books, because the children's books are generally just having fun. But the happier stories on the short end of the spectrum require me to stay in character, and it's not that it's fake, it's just that you have to stay in that mode for an extended period of time, because it takes hours and hours and hours to write these things. So that part can be a little bit more challenging, because within that environment, there's always things that are being introduced from the outside world. Appointments get changed. People, have input on other parts of my life, which can feed into that. So anyways, that was sort of the gist of what that was about. So the website will be sort of separating the types of material that's going to be offered. There's a lot of stories. I've got like 15, going to be pretty close to 20 stories in there very soon. I've got a lot more that are the brainstorming sort of will be written soon stage. I find it, obviously, like everybody else, time is short. I have obligations. I have I'm a single father, so I have 2 children at home. I have a job. I have a family. I have 6 children. So actually 8 children. 2 are from marriage, and then of the 6 children, I try to make sure that I have space for them, because they deserve all my time and my effort. But at the same time, I have to continue to do the things that I do for myself, just as they need time to do the things that they do for themselves, because they have jobs and families and that too. And hello guys, I don't know if anybody's watching, but hi. So this is sort of a precursor to what it is that I'm going to be changing in the website. It's not a big change. It's probably not even going to be noticeable, but at the same time, it is a change that will affect the way that you explore the website. Now, as for the Scratch, as for the artwork and that sort of stuff, everything that I've done in Scratch, literally everything except for my logo, was done on paper. Not a great format for going digital. So I got a professional scanner, and I bought a Huawei, go figure, writing pad. So I will be recreating everything onto that writing pad, so that the Scratch would be easier and crisper and cleaner and much more defined in itself. Most of them you look at and go, it's a concept. It's just a concept drawing, right? There's not a lot of detail, because I don't know if you've seen a lot of people's tattoos, but there's the I call it the price point indicator, which is how much detail is in that tattoo, along with filler indicators. And filler indicators mean that they have color. 80% of the tattoos or more that I see out there are black, just one color, monotone. They are the design, and some very good designs, some from some very good artists. There's a couple of dozen tattoo parlors, shops in the city I live in, and it is fascinating to see the breadth and the scope of the talent that's available out there. I'm going to get a second tattoo. I have this one. It's hard to see, but I have this one, and then I want another one on this arm. I've already drawn it out, so I have to submit it to the tattoo. See, I'm going off script here, but that's fine. It all kind of circles back, so I'll get there. Give me a sec. So I have to give them the initial drawing of what I want. Then they have to take it and give it their sort of their own twist, because every artist has a different style. And then they give it back to me a couple days later, and then we go over a few little tweaks, and then we decide on a final design. They create it onto a stencil printer, put it on my arm, and then they tattoo it. I have this tattoo as a filled. I have a new tattoo is going to be a 3 color fill. So I like tattoos that are filled, and I like tattoos that don't, not that I don't like sleeves or anything like that, but I mean on myself, I like tattoos that are a image. You see it, you see the image, cool. And it's not because of the simple justification as to whether or not I think that picture is cool or that picture is not cool, because generally they're almost all cool. Yes, there are tattoo fails. I've seen that TV show. But all in all, you got to consider how hard it is to tattoo, how hard the subject matter would be if somebody's squirming or whatever. But in there lies the whole idea. So when I get an idea to do Scratch and I do a simple picture, I don't go back like a tattoo artist would and re-render it. The image I drew in the first place is the image I intended. Just as when I write a story, I don't go back and re-edit the heck out of it and create a different story and soften the sentences and create the paragraph and sentence structure as would be required, say, in most literature, because I don't want it to be read in a bland, formal way, irregardless of how good the material might be. And I am not a Stephen King, young Stephen King, or younger, whatever. The story, the way I wrote it, in broken sentences, broken structure, and on the way that certain things are written to be read, that's exactly the way I intend it. So no, I'm not going to go back and restructure these things to look like they're supposed to be, the greatest story ever written, or blah blah blah. What I want it to be read at is just, if you go through an airport and you see those spinners with those romance novels or whatever, yeah, that's pretty much where my stuff's going to be sitting. Quick novellas, I would love to see them on, because we have ferries here where I live, because I'm on an island. So if you go to the restaurant or to the shop on the ferry, because they're large ferries, so there's shops and restaurants and stuff. There's just no drinking or gambling. That you would be able to see my little booklets, my little pamphlets, 10-page booklets of something quick to just read, quick little story, quick little idea, blah blah blah. It's when I get into the artwork of it that I I feel that if I go back and I redo it and I do much more detail and clean it up and all that sort of stuff, that's not what I wanted to do. That's not how I see it. And the whole point here is that this is the way I see it. Does anybody else see it like this? Is there anybody out there? Hello? And does anybody else see it as sort of this whole thing is a rough draft, and everybody's guessing, and just like everybody's doing their best, irregardless of whether or not that is affected the first time or the second time or the third time. It's the same with me. I don't see the world as a cleaned up, unified, third, fourth rendition of what I see today. I find that there are things around the world that are in stages of development, and my writing and my art and all that sort of stuff, the music I wrote, the books, my inventions, they're all in that form of development. So, by the way, there's a second website, because now that I've gone back to the original website format for Red Eyed Radical, it is the art and creation format with the YouTube videos, because as you go into the page, you'll see that there's like 8 or 9 or 10 YouTube videos, and every day I'm trying to get another one out, like I have with this one. I did one yesterday. I didn't do one for about a week before that. But the point of that was that what I was trying to create with that whole, invention and guidebook end of it, those ones are the ones that are going to take a lot more deep diving into the nitty gritty, and they're going to take a lot more time for me to clean up and professionalize, or a lot more investigation and study, and make sure that the information I'm putting out there is accurate. That those are the ones that are going to be have to follow a certain set of guidelines and rules. But what I have on this one now, with the stories and the art and all that sort of stuff, it's not. Just like the music I make, it's not. It's just me and it's drawn from influences from some people and situations and events that have gone on in my life. And I could go back and say thank you to hundreds of people that have influenced me in both positive ways and some that have influenced me in negative ways, but for a better good, for, you know, the result in the end was a positive because of the negative that I saw. Three people in particular that I keep going back to in my mind, going, you know, without their love and affection and input and influence on my life, I would not be probably anywhere near who I am right now. And that is Karen, Dawn, and Julie. And I think that those three girls are the most caring, the most fascinating people I have ever met in my life, outside of my family members and stuff like that. Now, it's hard to explain as to why I think those three people made such a major influence on my life, but let's just say at a very tentative time in my youth, they didn't judge me. And when the world was judging, they were just a core example of humanity and compassion. And I want to say thank you. You've influenced me more than you will ever know. And going back onto that, I just want to also say that if I kind of seem choppy and a little toss-salady, I don't know why I say stuff like that, it's kind of weird, then I think it's because all the thoughts that are coming in my head, and I want to make sure that I make every point and I reiterate all the things that I meant to say in the first place. I find that if I hit on the subject and I move off, and then I hit on the other subject and I move off, then at least I've made the connection. Now, I can go back and I can delve into each subject as you would go back and reread a chapter and absorb more out of that. And one other thing I just wanted to say today, because I think this is, I don't know if it's really worth saying or if it matters to anybody, but I woke up this morning to the smell of fire. And I kind of thought, oh, strange. My son wasn't cooking his usual 3 a.m. steak in the morning, steak and eggs. It's weird. He's got this thing he's trying to learn how to cook. I realized that when I stepped outside, there was a haze, gentle red haze happening outside in the sky, and it's got to be, because this happened a couple of years ago, I realized as I'm stepping into my truck, oh, there must be an abundance of forest fires out there right now, because, man, it's bad. There's smog and smoke all over this beautiful city of ours. That's all you can smell is the smell of burning wood, and it's kind of not good, obviously. But then, just like I said, and this is why I wanted to end the video on sort of this, that yes, there's a whole bucket full. Ooh, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say something else, but that's okay. There's a whole I'm trying to reform that sentence. There is a lot of smoke in the air, and it seems to me that it's coming from forest fires. That's what I would assume with the amount of smog and smoke that's in the air right now. But from that destruction, there is going to be rebirth and growth. So this is probably the first video, too, that I haven't mentioned anything about the financial news that's out there right now, because it is a beat down mess right now with the stock market and with all that sort of stuff. So I'm sort of just hanging back and sitting on my hands and not doing anything for a few days while I wait to see what's happening, because it's either one opportunity or a second opportunity. Either way, we're gonna kind of find out here pretty fast. I wanted to lock this video up and say thanks again. Keep an eye out for the next story, because this one's a doozy. And please, just when I give these notations in the stories, read the precursor first, give you an idea of what you're in for. Thanks.